The pressure, the anxiety, and all the noise around this final stretch takes center stage for 15 drivers looking for one sight and one sight only, the sight of the trophy at season's end in 2022. The first step to get to that site, though, gets taken tonight on the Route Tour title, where from the virtual Nashville Superspeedway, we give you a warm welcome to the Music City and to the first race of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series playoffs in Season 4. Welcome to our coverage tonight on MaxSpeedTV. So happy to have you join us. We're atop the broadcast booth in Lebanon, Tennessee. My name is Kenneth Bueno. Unfortunately, no Francisco Bacchial tonight in the booth. We were supposed to have him on track racing with the field tonight. He was supposed to trade the headset for the steering wheel this evening, trying to defend his win from the previous season in Season 3, although unfortunately he is not here, so I'm going to be solo here tonight in the broadcast booth from our first race of the playoffs. And of course, we've been waiting so long, over 18 races and counting, to get to this point to decide the 15 drivers that are going to run for this Season 4 title. Of course, a lot of storylines we brought in from race 1 all the way till now. We had many different races where surprise winners came out of the fold. We saw, of course, dominant drivers come in. Rookie driver Lawson Peel getting the most wins out of anyone this season. And one thing we have to note, from 1 week back at Kansas, we didn't have our coverage on MaxSpeedTV there. Kyle Benson made a walk-off win at that Kansas Speedway to get his first win of the season, and of course to lock himself in to the Season 4 playoff field. So of course he will be a part of that after talking about his struggle all season long. So much to talk about, of course. Before we get into the point standings, why don't we take a look overhead and get a clearer look as to where we are here in the virtual world. We'll take a look at our track map, of course, with images provided to us by Google Earth. Nashville Superspeedway hasn't been around too long in the NASCAR calendar. Of course, it reopened in 2021 to much fanfare. It's still been around since. The NASCAR Cup Series raced here not too long ago. This track opened back in 2001 to 2011. It's a 1.333 mile, 2.145 kilometer racetrack. Of course, 4 turns. You see it open back in 2001 and reopened back in 2021 to the NASCAR Cup Series, and there's 14 degrees of banking in the turns. And also, one thing to note about this track surface, it is concrete, much like the Dover Motor Speedway over in Dover, Delaware. This has the same track surface. I believe the company owns these 2 tracks that are similar in nature, so they do have similar properties when it comes down to a little bit of the banking and of course that main concrete surface. That is the biggest thing we're going to be talking about mostly throughout tonight. Of course, we are running in daytime conditions, so things are going to get very hot very quick, and the rear tires might light up a little bit quicker than anticipated with the way that, of course, this track surface handles the sun and a lot of the heat. There is some cloud cover though, so we may see that come into the fold as well. Let's take a look at our playoff schedule though, see exactly what tracks we are headed to in this season before we end up at the stretch final race, the championship one at Texas Motor Speedway in early August. And if you notice one thing that is glaring in this playoff group, the ones highlighted in red, yellow, and green, is that this one has the most pressure out of any. Of course, the 3 races, Darlington, Talladega, Charlotte, they are going to be the tracks that end up deciding the championship 5 at Texas later on this year. But there are 3 races in that group, only 2 this time in this opening round. 5 drivers will be eliminated after the race at Rockingham next week on July 6th. Of course, this first race to set things up, both highlighted in red, and both very difficult tracks, and tracks that did return from previous seasons, although they were regular season events, not playoff ones. Nashville and Rockingham being paired together. Of course, Darlington, Talladega, Charlotte, a very unique set of racetracks. Charlotte being the last 1.5 mile track in that penultimate round before you get to Texas Motor Speedway, of course, being the first time finale after last season was a different track. Previous season was a different track as well. We had Atlanta last season. We had Charlotte the season before. So good to see that Texas is a brand new addition in this intermediate category for the drivers right now when it comes down to the championship. Speaking of the championship, let's get a look at our point standings before we get started here on the grid. Lawson Peel, of course, leads them all, 2,026 points. All the bonus points from the halfway portion point cut. They would give points to the drivers in the top 5 at halfway in each and every race. And of course, winning 5 races gives you a good amount of buffer to stay above the rest of the competition. Eric Schaefer will be second, AJ Green in third, and you'll see the tally that works all the way down to +0. Everybody from Brandon Banks on down to Jesse Preece, they are locked in at 2,000 points. So of course, we will see how things shake up. We could see drivers in the top 8 or so, top 10, shake around significantly based on what happens tonight. There are 20 drivers here, so 20 points on the line here tonight from the virtual Nashville Superspeedway. One thing we don't see, at least in this playoff field, are two significant names. Adam Alashire, who drives the 14, and the 11 of Austin Reedy. They decided they are not able to make all of the races in the playoffs, most of them at least, so they are forfeiting their playoff spots. In replacement is Tyler Murray, your league owner, in the 8, and the driver of the 93, Cody Kinsey. So, of course, those new additions to the playoffs are going to make a big difference. We'll see what they can do here tonight from the Music City, and drivers are lined up behind the iRacing official pace car, which means it's our time to take a look at your starting grid, see exactly where everybody and your favorite driver will be lining up here tonight in our first of many playoff races. On pole is the 99 of Colin Forrester with a 29.937, one of the fastest in practice. He sets the first and best time in qualifying. He'll be the first one to see the green alongside his very own teammate, two playoff drivers on row number 1, AJ Green on his very outside. Row number 2, of course, Adam Alashire will not make most of the playoff races, but he is here tonight to go for another win of the season after getting his first at Watkins Glen a couple of weeks back. He sets a time good enough for third, and Stonks Motorsports teammate Lance Hill will be on his outside. Hill was a playoff driver. It is a gridlock from row 1 to row 2. All Stonks Motorsports drivers. Craig Lounslauger rounds up the top 5 in his Toyota Camry tonight in P5. And of course, Christopher Bishop in his Chevrolet, the 42, will be to his outside in P6. Kyle Benson, who got the win 1 week ago, a walk-off one to send him into the playoffs. He is 7th here tonight. Jaden Porter, after getting a top 5 finish at Watkins Glen, a top 3 at Kansas last week. He rounds up our top 8 in row number 4. Eric Schaefer, Joe Sanchez, the 22 and the 55 will be the last drivers in the top 10. Lawson Peel, 5 wins on the season. Of course, not too worried about things right now with his points buffer, but he does need a little bit of work to do from 11 tonight on the grid. Jesse Prees will be on his outside in P12. Tony Kivick, Curtis Kelly will be the ones rounding up row number 7. Brandon Banks, Tyler Murray to row number 8. Tyler Warner, CJ Munier to your row number 9. Final drivers in this field, Michael Newbraw and the 93 of Cody Kinsey. Actually, the final one is Mark Harris. All playoff drivers back there, so they're going to need a lot of work. They did not set a qualifying time here tonight from Nashville. Of course, with all the playoff drivers, you see those red banners at the top of the windshields. That's how we know they are playoff drivers running for the title. And it is a Stonks Motorsports gridlock at the front row. Colin Forrester, AJ Green will lead us into the restart zone for the first time tonight. Barney the Flagman waves the green, and we're underway in race 1 of the 4Wide Racing Cup Series playoffs. Quick getaway for the 99 of Colin Forrester. He leads lap number 1 here as Adam Alashire will be 2 right behind him, able to pass AJ Green on the very outside. Made a daring move up top at a place where you usually don't see a lot of outside passes. We're now Stonks Motorsports 1, 2, 3, and 4. Although that 4th spot may be jeopardized. The 13, Craig Lounslauger, looking to the inside. That's going to be all for naught. And the 10 of Kyle Benson will look for 5th. So all single file, first battle around your top 10. That's Jaden Porter on the inside. Christopher Bishop, the 42, the 28. Of course, we see those Ally colors made the debut over at Watkins Glen. And a great round-out performance at Kansas just 1 week ago in your regular season finale. And there's Lawson Peel in brand new colors tonight. Of course, trying to capture some of that Chase Elliott Concrete King energy right now as he wraps a new Napa Auto Parts paint scheme. Bishop gets way loose out of turn 4. And we are 3 wide for position on the front stretch. And of course, these first handful of laps, as you look on board with Adam Alashire, the overcast skies, not as hot as we anticipated it would be here on this concrete surface, but everybody trying to get their first laps in and get themselves settled. And it looks so far, Stonks Motorsports pretty much has a stranglehold on the field right now. Alashire wiggling out of turn 4 may give the opportunity for AJ Green to step to the inside, although he'll think better of it before turn 1. Will stay there, and Alashire really putting the pressure on the 99. And there was a trade-off here. Of course, Alashire not part of the playoffs this year, although he should have been with that win at Watkins Glen. forfeited his spot. Now he's just running for wins here at the end of this season, and that's going to be very interesting on that little agenda switch based on himself in comparison to his other Stonks Motorsports teammates, who are all, of course, running for their second straight championship in series history. Remember, AJ Green, the driver who made the championship happen at Atlanta 1 season ago, and had a couple of his teammates with him, including this 14 right here, and your leader, the 99 of Colin Forster. We remain still 1, 2, 3, 4 on the same team. Alashire looked to the inside, but to no good, and they are all stacked up, putting themselves at a difference against the 13 of Launslager in P5. You're right on board here with the 13, Craig Launslager, of course. No wins this season in 2022, but one of the best drivers consistently in the points, and it has mattered here as he ends up in the playoffs. And now we have a battle officially for the lead. In fact, a change of position for the lead. Alashire in the 14 gets to the inside of Colin Forster, and Alashire, your race leader as of lap 7. And take a look on board with Alashire's rear end, his Ford Mustang, and really get a sense of how this Nashville Superspeedway treats these next-gen cars. Of course, we ran Gen 6 last season. They used the 750 horsepower package with a very low spoiler. Those cars very loose, and these cars a little more stable in this racetrack, especially when you add in that diffuser all the way at the bottom. The underbodies, they almost go 3 wide for the race lead. Forster to the inside on the door of Alashire's bumper. And right there, they're going to go side by side for the lead out of turn 4. But they will stay remaining side by side. But these bumps are ridiculous here just a little bit in 3 and 4. Very smooth transition into 1 and 2. Doesn't really upset the car too much. But we're going to be talking about that bump in the middle of 3 and 4 practically all night long. It is really upsetting when it comes down to these race cars and how they handle them. You can easily get very loose. We've already seen a couple of drivers get in that situation, but it hasn't affected anybody to the point of a caution or a single car spin, which is, of course, the good news here as of lap number 9. Still even for the race lead. They're going to go side by side for even more positions behind. Alashire strikes the outside wall, and that'll give the nose to Colin Forster. Lance Hill going to try and peek open on the inside. And a solid pass by Hill that moves him into second. Here's side by side for P4 on the racetrack right now. Kyle Benson in his new colors tonight. 213 Simwear on his Chevrolet Camaro. Number 10, of course, getting that win at Kansas Speedway last week to lock him into the playoffs. He works on the inside of new colors on AJ Green's machine, of course, commemorating the Colorado Avalanche on their NHL Series victory over the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup Finals, ending up getting their first trophy. And the 22 of Eric Schaefer now works to the inside, so that little groove switch up by AJ Green. The pressure now starting to overcome, and now here comes Schaefer looking for 2 for 1 here out of turn 2. Oh, he's going to turn the 10. Benson got into him at the entrance of turn 3, and they both get together, move up the racetrack. Caution flag waves at lap 11 of 151. And there you can see the heavy right front damage on the 22 of Eric Schaefer, who just got a little bit too eager into turn 3 and got into the 10 of Benson, both sliding up the racetrack and both with some heavy front end and rear end damage. There you take a look at the 10, the assessment on his car, and it is not pretty for Benson. That is not what you wanted to see if you're a new entrant into the playoffs, and Benson's going to have to limp that one to pit road. You see the heavy toe link damage on that right front wheel wiggling all over the place, and even then some more damage on the rear end. It's going to be very hard to turn that car, at least in some sort of manner, to the left and take it down pit road at a reasonable speed. Let's take a look and see exactly what happened here on the replay, and it didn't look too harmful, at least at first into turn 3. Schaefer looked to the inside. I believe Benson didn't expect him to dive it that deep at that point in time. And, of course, sends Benson hard into the outside safer barrier. That is the hardest hit we've seen out of that wreck. Of course, the 22 getting away mostly scot-free with a bit of damage, but it should be at least not too much to take him out of the race, but it will be enough to send him down pit road. Here's another look at it. Schaefer just driving a little bit too deep in the corner. AJ Green getting stacked up. Craig Launslager taking his nose through and getting away clean, although that is almost disaster if you're the driver of the 13 there. Also into the playoff driver as well as the 13 of Launslager. Let's take a look on board with the 13 into turn 3. And right there, the contact is made. Here's the 13. Way too close to the mayhem, and fortunately they don't skimp down the track to involve anybody else. Everybody pretty much gets through away without any significant damage. But for the likes of Benson and for the 22 of Schaefer, that is going to be a lot of time on pit road, but maybe none if you're Kyle Benson. Immediately shoots for the faster pair, of course. In this 4-wide Racing Cup Series, you are gifted one faster pair per race, but you do have to use it wisely, of course. This is a 151-lap race. We're only on lap 13, so Benson using it now may be a big risk, but it may be a risk worth taking when it comes down to at least softening the bleeding here. Eric Schaefer, for him, though, he does not take the faster pair, I don't believe. Actually, no, does not. So took some time on pit road to get some of that car damage fixed, at least on the right front and the left front as well. Looks like they did a good job of doing so. So Schaefer will come out of pit road, a relatively clean Chevrolet Camaro, although the only caveat is that he's going to be practically dead last here in this racetrack right now, 21st on the racetrack. And so some drama early between a non-playoff driver and a playoff entrant after last week at Kansas, but we are ready to get things back green here tonight from the Nashville Superspeedway. Of course, happy that you're joining us. A lot going on MaxSpeedTV. Of course, if you want to tune in to another race, go doubleheader racing if you want on YouTube. The ACOG Bronze Regional Series going on right now. Round number 2 for them from the virtual Iowa Speedway. Currently working around lap 50 of 75, closing in on the final 25 laps of that race. So if you want a little more racing action for your fix here on Wednesday night, you can tune over to that. But of course, keep our tab open. We've got a lot of good racing here tonight from Nashville and a lot on the line in the Music City for that Gibson guitar, and of course for the entrance into the round of 10 and second round for the playoffs in the 4-wide Racing Cup Series. Pace car makes its way down a pit road. The restart zone going to be pivotal here on this route to the start-finish line. Colin Forrester early on the jump. Lance Hill on the inside. We're back racing at lap 15. And a good jump by Hill on the inside. He's going to duck immediately to the bottom side of his teammate, Colin Forrester. Make it side by side for third as well. Simmering down very quickly. Alashire clearing ahead of the 48. They're side by side for even position behind in the midst of the top 10. But Hill is still on the inside of Forrester to turn 3. And Hill trying to do all that he can to stay on the bottom side, but the outside on the 14 degrees of banking working to his benefit. Forrester noses ahead to lead that time through, but how close will they get? Almost contact, indeed contact, once, twice, and at turn 1 and 2, and almost 3 wide for the race lead. And they remain side by side. Hill staying on the very bottom and no advantage to either one. This time a bottom up out of the 38 of Hill. Forrester will check up and Hill almost hit the outside wall. 3 wide for third as Lawson Peel tries to spoil the party in the top 5. And it is absolute mayhem in the mid-pack. Take a look at Colin Forrester, middle 3 wide there for a moment. Alashire on the very top. Peel moving his way into the top 3. And now AJ Green, the next challenger for P1. And you have to be very careful in 3 and 4. We saw the checkups by both the 38 and the 99, 2 different conditions. 38 had to slow down on the very bottom to avoid hitting Forrester out of turn 4, and then Forrester almost hit the outside wall himself after hitting that bump in 4. But now AJ Green finally able to get around the 38, and AJ Green, your new leader into turn 3. There's a look at Lawson Peel weaving his way into third, and he, of course, had a great sight as there were 3 and almost 4 wide. Remember, all these guys are teammates, majority of them running for the championship, so you have to be very careful around this talented group, and we've seen these guys have some scuffles, especially, remember, at Bristol earlier this season, countless times where they have raced hard. They've mostly raced clean. There have been a couple of times where the cleanliness gets a little bit shoddy, and they've made some contact, and they've made some problems happen. And remember, they're all playoff drivers. They are having a lot on the line here tonight, so they need to be very careful in the reins here, especially against other playoff drivers that can take advantage if they make a huge mistake. Here comes Lawson Peel diving in the middle of 1 and 2. That'll be a pass almost complete on the 38 of Lance Hill, but he'll immediately back out, not able to get enough momentum or grip on the very bottom of the racetrack. and it will simmer down. Will stay in third as they're side by side even further throughout the top 10. How about Joe Sanchez, Curtis Kelly going at it for P8? Look on board from Curtis Kelly. There is a look at Kyle Benson in the background, P11, so he's made significant ground already since that first incident. After using the faster pair, he has been pretty much bent on getting back up through the front of the field. We've seen Benson have a myriad of bad luck, especially when it comes down to playoff time. Gonna try to work on Jesse Priest here, had to back up just a little bit, and things are stacking significantly 8th on back as the top 7 or so starting to run away from everybody else. So Priest stays to the inside. Adam Alashar has fallen off significantly, and he may lose another one here in the 10 of Kyle Benson. Alashar practically pulling off the anchor here at Nashville Superspeedway, and it is not helping him whatsoever. How about a pass here inside for P5? That is Craig Launslager to the inside of Colin Forrester. So Launslager will make the pass complete. Now Jesse Priest will be the next one on the chopping block to the inside of Forster. Forster staying up high, and pretty much no remedy right now. Fear that 99, the WinVal car of Colin Forster that went to victory lane earlier this season at the Chicagoland Speedway, and we had wondered how long it would take Forster to get to victory lane and advance into the playoffs this season. It took him that 13 race stretch before finally getting it at Chicagoland, and now going to try and work back on the 13 of Craig Launslager. But if you look on the inside of the cockpit, take a listen to the engine as he's entering the corner. And that's a shift right there coming out of turn 2. Of course, got passed by a couple of cars. That is Mark Harris up in front, fellow playoff driver, the one who got ahead of him in turns 3 and 4 to win at the Auto Club Speedway earlier in the season. But there is shifting happening right now in the Nashville Superspeedway as Forster gets way tight, and we're off the right front a little bit too heavy. And right now, almost hitting the outside wall that time by. We have a pass for the lead, by the way. Jesse Priest, Jaden Porter to first and second. There were 2 drivers who pitted on that last caution involving Eric Schaefer and Kyle Benson, and the fresh tire power to the race lead and to P2. So Jaden Porter, Jesse Priest already checking out at about 1.1 seconds and growing. They're side by side now for third. Kyle Benson, AJ Green going at it. Kyle Benson in that group as well. Of the ones that did pit most recently, now 13 laps on their respective stints, so about a 12 or so lap difference between the drivers who pitted on that caution and the ones who did not, and it is starting to pay heavy dividends at a track that is known for eating these tires up. Remember, these are concrete surfaces we're talking about. Remember, Dover on the other side, if you go to that short track, that track also eats up the Goodyear Egos rather quickly, and with these compounds that are really much softer by Goodyear on the NASCAR Next Gen cars comparative to the Gen 6, which are usually more sturdy and usually are prone to lasting as long as possible, these tires with the low profile wheels also, it also makes a big difference as well. Mark Harris also in that group for the fresh tire power. He's moved up to 4th as they go side by side for 5th. Lawson Peel, AJ Green going at it for the position, but Lawson Peel going to make quick work, although for a moment Green tried to aim for the crossover but could not do it, and Lawson Peel stays in 5th. Here's a look on board from Jaden Porter, the rookie driver here in this 4-Wide Racing Cup Series. Of course, we saw his debut race over at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Did rather well, almost stepped into the top 3. Was unfortunately not able to get by Craig Launslager for that 3rd and final podium position. We would have talked to him here in the broadcast booth, but it has been an impressive run so far for Porter. Of course, a top 3 just last week at the 1.5 miler at Kansas Speedway. So Porter has been on fire as a rookie driver, and we've seen this happen before. Remember the name Lawson Peel in Season 3? We didn't really know him up until Richmond, where he made that win happen on a 2-tire call, and now this season he has been a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs. Jaden Porter kind of following in the same footsteps, still needs that win to cement himself in that place though, but Porter doing a good job now, 0.2 of a second over Jesse Priest in 2nd. And And you watch them move up through the field. Watch everybody squirm by that front straightaway little trial. Here's Tony Kivitt moving into 11th. That's just behind Curtis Kelly. A really big group of drivers. A huge train from Lawson Peel on back. You're right on board with the Chevrolet Camaro of Kivitt just behind Curtis Kelly. You see Colin Forster, Lance Hill, Craig Lownslugger up the road as well. AJ Green, who fell short of the race lead. These are all guys that did not pit in that opening stint after the first yellow came out, so they're just trying to hold on to what they've got. And Lance Hill just had a piece of the outside wall. Colin Forster ducking low to avoid. And the wear really getting to these drivers right now. We saw Colin Forster almost hit the outside wall. A lot of understeer taking place. And even though the track temperature isn't as hot as we expected it to be here in Nashville Superspeedway, coupled with the fact that we've got concrete surface here all over this Lebanon, Tennessee track, drivers are still suffering with that right front, and mostly so for these two Stonks Motorsports drivers. Tony Kivitt is going to thread the needle, move middle, 3 wide, and will make the pass complete on Forster, who backs out before turn 1. And Tony Kivitt, a daring move to send him to P8. So while these guys continue to go at it, Jesse Prees, Jaden Porter, and company have seemingly run away from the rest of the field. You watch the gap right there. Look how large it is between Mark Harris in 4th and Lawson Peel in 5th. It is increasing by every single lap. Now you have to wonder, if this stays green, how will this affect the pit road strategy? Of course, these guys may have to come in sooner than later since they are on the oldest tires of the field. For the guys up front, are they banking for something to happen, or are they just wanting to let this play out? We saw the strategy become a big factor of the Nashville race just 1 season ago, where Francisco Bacalhau had dominated that race, but there was a lot of green flag action, a lot of drivers coming in on pit road at certain amounts of time, and the different strategy calls really play it out in different ways, allow drivers to get some fresh tires. And really at a track that is as abrasive as this Nashville Superspeedway is, you have to keep that in mind. Tires are going to be huge when you get at a track like this. There's a look on board from Lawson Peel's rear end on the Chase Elliott paint scheme, running a one-time one here tonight at the Music City, and Craig Lownslugger working to the inside. That is, of course, for P6 on the racetrack. Lownslugger and Green, both playoff drivers. Green with 2 wins on the season, his most recent coming at Daytona. Lownslugger none on the campaign, but has been one of the best drivers, especially in this round. It may hold to his strong suits. He's usually good at these abrasive tracks, these intermediates that really aren't considered 1.5-mile tracks. They kind of race like a short track, kind of race like an intermediate, sort of a best of both worlds. And we've seen that 13 do very well. He's had wins at those abrasive types of track. Remember the Iowa win back in season number 3. It's been a while since the 13 has gone to victory lane, but he's doing a good job of keeping himself in pace tonight as he rides P7 and still trying to get underneath AJ Green for P6. Tony Kivitt on the outskirts of this battle, maybe making it 3 wide, will decide better of it before going back into turn 1, and they will stay door to door, but they are losing significant amounts of time to the driver up in front, Lawson Peel, who has since checked out and will try to run his own race. Tony Kivitt will try to give support here to the 13 going into turn 3, and there's the pass complete. 13 will officially clear, and now it's up to the 2 Camaros there, although Kivitt got very tight in the middle of the corner, will allow AJ Green to stay with it coming out of turn 4. But Kivitt will officially make that pass, and I think Kivitt may have done a better job of saving those Goodyear Eagles as opposed to those Stonks Motorsports cars. They were racing hard since the drop of the green at lap number 1. So we'll keep an eye on how those Stonks Motorsports drivers are going to do. Remember, they started 1, 2, 3, 4 on the racetrack. They basically shut out the first 2 rows here on the grid. Right now, they are falling back, and it is not helping their situation whatsoever. They're practically getting swarmed by all the other guys that are not part of their team and not looking for some teamwork whatsoever. Update on Eric Schaefer, who got into that incident on the first yellow with Kyle Benson. He is up to 19th. It has not been the best recovery so far for Schaefer, but we've seen this happen before, where Schaefer has been involved in incidents before. He's been near the rear of the field, but he has since picked it back up, and he could get in a position where he could be there for the checkered flag. And the same could be said for Adam Alashire just up the road. They may have a battle here for 18th on the racetrack, just behind playoff driver Tyler Murray. We'll see what happens between the Ford Mustang and the Camaro, but for now, we are staying in the midst of a single file run between those guys as the field have basically simmered down, and not many battles on the racetrack happening right now. This is really the state of the run where you end up in a place where you really decide, all right, what do I have here? How are my tires handling? How is my car going to behave for the rest of the stint? And obviously the most important question to ask, what can I do to either mitigate the negatives on this run and maybe enhance the positives on the other end? Tony Kivitt, you watch up there, as you're riding on board with the 38 of Lance Hill, made a slide job move right there on, I believe that was Craig Lounslager for position. Right on board with the 13, indeed it was. So Kivitt already making good use of those tires in this late run, and Kivitt becoming one of the spoilers here, now second on the list of drivers that are on 40-lap-old tires. And Toby Kivitt, of course, one of the non-playoff drivers. If you look at those windshield banners and the spoilers, that really tells you who's a part of the playoff race for the championship this year and who is not. Of course, all the drivers outlined in red on their race cars, whether it comes to their windshields or the spoilers, they are running for this 2022 title. The ones that have the normal black windshield banners and the different color spoilers, depending on their paint scheme, they are, of course, not running for the championship. And we've talked about this a lot, the relationship between the ones running for the title and the ones that are not. We see a very different agenda between the two. Of course, in this round, you cannot afford to have a very bad first race. We talked about it at the top of the show, looking back in that schedule, only 2 races. So if you have a dismal performance here tonight from Nashville Superspeedway, the chances are you're going to have your back against the wall below that cut line by the time you get to Rockingham, North Carolina, and you're going to really have to have a standout performance if you want to make a statement for the round of 10 and, of course, to continue on to the championship 5. But if you're not one of the playoff drivers, you're not worrying about that. Of course, the title's not on the line. All you have to do is just run the rest of the races if you want to and go for wins. We've seen a lot of guys become spoilers at many different points in a season, in a playoff run, where the drivers that are running for the title are so bent on getting to victory lane, but then the ones in the non-playoff colors, they end up taking advantage of all the stress, all the anxiety, and all the anticipation to run for the championship trophy, and they end up using that sort of nothing to lose mentality to their advantage. And Tony Kivitt, really the best on this long run at the moment, out of that second group that did not pit on the opening yellow. Here's a look at the distance now spread between first and second. Jaden Porter, as we were talking about non-playoff drivers, he is one of those not running for the title this year as a rookie. He has opened things up to a 1.7 second gap on a playoff driver, Jesse Prees in the 00. I think that worked, the call for not only the 00 of Prees, but for Benson and for Harris. It seems to have worked out swimmingly for them. They have the freshest tires now, and if they do come down pit road on the long run, expect them to also have that advantage. Unless maybe a yellow comes out, it will even this field up. But now the question is, who comes down pit road first? Do we see the playoff drivers come in first? Do we see this batch of second group guys come in next? Always going to be a big question, but so far as of lap 45, they have not reached that point to come in. The field window, I don't believe, is not open quite yet. Going to be open in just a little bit, but right now, nothing to be worried about. Everybody just trying to run their own race and nestle their own cars and really baby them to the point where they can at least take it to that first pit stop. That is, of course, if we stay green flag racing. So 45 laps into our 151-lap shootout from the Nashville Superspeedway. Of course, we go just over 200 miles on the racetrack and just over 320 kilometers here in Lebanon, Tennessee. And as Jaden Porter continues to lead this race, we'll remind you that our coverage tonight of the 4Wide Racing Cup Series is brought to you by 213 Simware. 213 Simware offers fun novelty sim racing apparel with a variety of styles, sizes, and more for you to enjoy and rep sim racing on and off the track. To visit more and to shop today, you can go to 213simware.com. Of course, always happy to have new sponsors in this 4Wide Racing Cup Series, a continuously growing series. A lot of great drivers in this season so far. We've seen a lot of great racing, and hopefully we have 213 Simware here to stay when we come down to the rest of this series, going for the title in Season 4, and maybe in the future when we dial up Season 5 later on in 2023. Things are starting to get a little bit abrasive here around the latter half of the top 10. Tony Kivitt has made his way by Lawson Peel, and what that has done is open the door for Craig Lounslager and Brandon Manx to take advantage into the top 6. And Peel struggling on the outside lane. Of course, Nashville Superspeedway is not known for a lot of multi-groove racing, so you're not going to see anybody really further out unless in that shaded area unless they have a problem there. They move up the racetrack for some sort of reason. You won't see them expand further out past that shaded area on the bottom of the racetrack. The inside is the place to be. We are almost 3 wide there as Brandon Banks will spread the needle here. Of course, Brandon Banks, we haven't talked about him, a former Championship 5 driver at the Atlanta Motor Speedway when we decided a title in season number 4. And Banks has been one of the quieter drivers tonight, and so far moving his way into the top 8. May have a placement into the top 6 if he can get this thing going between the 13 and the 12. We started back in 15, so it's been a +7 right now on Banks' accord. We'll try to look on the bottom of Lawson Peel, but to no avail, and he'll just try to follow that 13 on the very bottom of the racetrack. Lawson Peel, you can tell, struggling with his Goodyear Eagles, and at this point, I think we reached this point of the run where drivers are basically begging for this, either a yellow coming out or basically a tire stretch to maneuver itself into fruition and a green flag pit stop strategy to happen at some point. Although for all of these guys, they have not decided to come in. Nobody has even given a sign that they want to head in for their first batch of service, and I'm pretty sure nobody really wants to bite the bullet right now. They don't want to be the driver on the worst end of the stick. You want to be the one on the freshest tires in this field. How about a battle between 2 playoff drivers right now in the midst of the top 15? That's Michael Newbraw and Curtis Kelly going at it. Michael Newbraw started pretty deep in this 21 car field in that 6 Maverick Chevrolet Camaro. He basically was all the way at the back, did not set a time in qualifying, but it has been a solid move in the first 51 laps of this race. Michael Newbraw setting a pace good enough for 12th right now. There you look at his speed at the moment. We're right on board with him in just a couple of moments. Here's a look as he's moving around Lance Hill. That is actually a blistering pass for 11th on the racetrack, and will now work on the 55. And actually, I believe they're slowing down for a reason, and that reason is pit road. We have numerous drivers in. Joe Sanchez, AJ Green, Curtis Kelly, Lance Hill, Colin Forrester. I believe Lawson Peel is also taking a step down. There he is in the 12. Now we have our first batch of green flag stops from Nashville. There's a look at Peel raising up the jacks. They look at the other drivers now that may peek on a pit road. Tony Kibbett is going to be the next one to strike. The 13 of Lownslugger will stay out, and the 76 will bring in Brandon Banks with him, although Kibbett almost about sped there, locked up the front end, and almost hit the grass entering the pit road speed limit. But the 76 of Tony Kibbett going to be on his way. A little bit of right rear damage, but it should be not enough to harm his aerodynamics, and will stay in. Tyler Murray is also on pit road as well, and now we practically are going to wonder when these guys up at the front that took some newer tires earlier on after the first yellow, when they will end up on pit road. Craig Lautenslager will not bite this time by. We'll take a look if Michael Newbraw will do the same. The answer is no. They've gone 54 laps on this stint so far. Cody Kinsey also going to be one staying out. Eric Schaefer, we'll take a look if he's coming in. Answer is no. AJ Green going to be the one going around, and so they'll take a couple of steps out on pit road, and we'll weigh their options, I believe, before we end up in a scenario where they will ultimately come down to the pit lane. There's a look at Craig Lautenslager back in it. We'll see if he slows down for the entrance of pit road. The answer is no, so he'll stay out into turn 4, and we have a majority of the drivers coming in. Practically everybody 9th on back, starting with Lawson Peel, who's the first driver there, 1 lap down. Should get a lucky dog if we get a yellow, but could unlap himself here, of course, when the rest of the field comes down in for service for the first time tonight. So Lawson Peel now getting the advantage back. AJ Green is moving quietly, 1.8 seconds behind this 12 car in P10. Brandon Banks will be the next car in it, but a huge group of cars around Colin Forrester. That's his teammate Lance Hill. That's Curtis Kelly up in front, and many contenders in the playoffs that are looking for those valuable points. Remember, at the top of the broadcast, we took a look at the point standings in your playoff grid. A majority of them are around 2,000 points. There is no real deficit if you're below the top 10. You're basically just 0 points to the next driver in P10. Of course, there is more of a buffer when you look at 8th on forward to Lawson Peel, who's leading the playoff grid. But for everybody down there, they basically have nothing to worry about when it comes down to losing points, because in fact, they can really just gain points over their competition based on where they are on the racetrack. Curtis Kelly being one of them. He's going to move around Cody Kinsey, one of the lap cars here. He will let the rest of these guys pass on through. He's one of the guys who have stayed out this far into the run. So we'll see what they can do if they can unlap themselves in a reasonable amount of time. Jesse Prees, there you look at him in P4. Cody Kinsey in P5, letting all these guys by. And actually, we did get an update that Craig Lautenslager has stepped on a pit road. There he is coming out of the turn 2 access road And so Launslager making his first pit stop tonight. And everybody up at the front practically waiting for that opportunity. And that 12-lap difference is going to matter. They're now 45 laps into the stint. So maybe sooner than later we'll see the likes of Jaden Porter and the rest of the guys in the top 4. So come down in a pit road, but we really have to determine who's going to be the first one, whether it will be playoff driver Kyle Benson, whether it will be playoff driver Mark Harris, whether it's Jesse Priest, also a playoff driver, or whether Jaden Porter, the one who's not running for the title at all, will come down pit road first, knowing that he has nothing to lose out on the racetrack. 59 to 151 complete. We continue our coverage of the first race in the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series playoffs. Jaden Porter, your leader at the moment. We'll take a short break and you won't miss a thing as we continue the race from Nashville Superspeedway. Jaden Porter, your race leader, over Kyle Benson, Mark Harris, Jesse Priest, and Cody Kinsey, your top 5.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12-Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
We've been waiting for this moment. Generations of innovation all coming together in one place. The pedigree of more than 70 years of NASCAR Cup Series history, from the past to the present, from Petty to Earnhardt to Elliott. Today, there's no more waiting. The future of NASCAR is now. Drive the next-gen cars today on iRacing. and step into the next generation of racing.
Welcome back to the virtual Nashville Superspeedway, our first of many playoff races here in Season 4 of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series. We were in the middle of a long green flag run, saw many drivers before the break enter pit road, but we have got our second caution of the night, and it involves the red-bannered car of Curtis Kelly, limping right now on the access road in 3 and 4, trying to get back to pit road. Of course, this run had lasted so long, we saw Cody Kinsey stay out as far as possible. He had basically run out of fuel before entering pit road, but the caution waved, everybody coasted, and now Cody Kinsey will take his step onto pit road. We'll take a look and see exactly how Curtis Kelly got into this mess to begin with. And we had to mention the Hornet's Nest around the field, Lance Hill, Curtis Kelly being one of them, Joe Sanchez, Colin Forrester being involved in that group, many of them just trying to find their place after getting their fresh set of Goodyear Eagles. Here was a look at Curtis Kelly going into 1 and 2. This was against Lance Hill, and just similar to Eric Schaefer and Kyle Benson, although way more violent for both, as they basically send it up the 14 degrees of banking, and it becomes a mess for both of them. The toe link damage on the right rear of Curtis Kelly. We'll take a look on board and see exactly how things unfolded. It's not going to get pretty, though, from here. Just the contact in the middle of the corner, didn't even go to the bottom of the racetrack, and that hit right there, that square hit on the right side of the Camaro, was easily more than enough to give him some toe leg damage. I'm not sure if it affected Lance Hill as hard as it could have. See some left side damage there in the middle of the door, around where that 38 number plate is. And I believe Lance Hill was able to escape without any significant damage. He stays out. He is third right now, but for Kelly, he had to take a tow, so he is on pit road. Here's a take a pit road for many of the leaders up at the front of the field. Your leader right now, Jaden Porter in the 28. While we were under break, he had taken a step onto the pit lane. It looks like, I believe, drivers within the top 10 or so. Lance Hill really being the first out of the leaders to come in for service, some 4 fresh tires and some fuel, and also could burn off the faster pair given at that moment. Of course, Curtis Kelly, I believe, still does have that faster pair to his benefit, although towing, though, onto pit road, that is going to lose him a dramatic amount of time, and I believe already he's lost a lap. In fact, he's lost 3. He is 19 in the running order, 19, 3 laps down, and he is the last car right now in the running order, still on the track. Tyler Murray got loose and apparently wrecked the race car. No caution was flown. He is 72 laps down in 21st. He will indeed be last here at the end of this race, and unfortunately for both of them as well, Adam Alashire joins that group in 20th. Of course, Alashire, not a playoff driver, so it's not going to affect him too much, but for Murray, that's going to give him a pretty big points hole going into the Rockingham Speedway when we get to that race in just 1 week time. So 19 cars still on the racetrack. We have a total of 15 on the lead lap. Kyle Benson is the first one 1 lap down. Remember, he had taken a stop on pit road, but I believe it was around that marker where he was just trying to unlap himself, and that caution had flown. Jaden Porter and the likes of them had such a huge gap on the rest of the guys behind that they were able to keep their lap intact. But for Benson, just a problem, or maybe even a penalty here assessed to the 10 of Benson, so he is back in 16th, and we'll hope to get his lap back by the time we get the 1 to green signal from the iRacing official pace car, which will happen right now. And Jaden Porter, Jesse Prees will be the first 2 on the racetrack. The biggest call, though, that really surprised me was Cody Kinsey. He went about 60 or so odd laps on that set of tires from the drop of the green. He was one of the only ones to really save fuel and stretch it as far as possible. and Kinsey taking a step down pit road as of the caution waving. He is now third, so he keeps his track position for the most part. A miraculous move on the strategy books by Kinsey, and the caution flies at the exact right moment to keep him in the top 5, and most likely could give him an opportunity to win this race. We are around halfway here tonight in this Nashville Superspeedway race, so before we go green, we'll take a look at your race summary. We've had a total of 1 caution since, actually 2 cautions overall in this race with 81 laps to go. Of course, 4 caution laps on this yellow. We've had a lot of lead changes since the drop of the green. Of course, we had that battle between the Stonks Motorsports teammates 1st through 4th. We saw the shakeup between all of them, and of course the most recent being Jaden Porter for the race lead, which he holds right now. Pace car exiting out of turn 4 to pit road. The 2 Camaros leading us to green. Jaden Porter, Jesse Priest to the Geico restart zone. Porter up and away. We're back under green from Nashville. And a solid jump for your race leader, but caution immediately waves. Trouble near the rear of the field. Christopher Bishop, CJ Munier, the 89, the 42 involved in our 3rd caution here. You see the 89 rolling down the 14 degrees of banking, comes to a stop and is able to fire back up. Christopher Bishop with some heavy front end nose damage on his Camaro. Not sure if there's some engine damage there as well. We'll take a look and see exactly how this all unfolded. Of course, near the rear of the field, around the top 15. And maybe a scuffle here with Lance Hill, who was just trying to pick his way to the inside, and indeed it was. Almost made it 3. Bishop cuts low, gets into the 38, is enough for Lance Hill to get by. And then CJ Munier, unfortunately, is the unfortunate driver here as an innocent bystander and gets hit at the last waning moments of that caution happening right there in turn 1 and 2. Take a look on board. Christopher Bishop on the rear end of his Camaro. There's nothing you can do there if you're Bishop. Just trying to defend his place and not anticipating Lance Hill to dive that deep in the corner. We've seen that a lot here in Nashville. Most of the wrecks aren't really happening because drivers are getting loose or oversteering or understeering. It's mostly just the entrance in the braking marker in a turn 1 and turn 3. That seems to be the biggest problem. Our first caution, of course, was a result of that incident as Eric Schaefer tried to dive it underneath Kyle Benson, got into him, and that second caution happening with Curtis Kelly and Lance Hill. And of course, Lance Hill involved in this one once again. This, though, will allow Kyle Benson to get his lap back here in the top 15. So that is the good news if you're the 10, but practically bad news if you're everybody else just trying to settle back into a long green flag run. Although this gave Cody Kinsey P2, so another addition to Cody Kinsey's run through the front. Now sitting needing that one more to be ahead of Jaden Porter for the race lead. Now we have 2 non-playoff drivers running at the front of the field, so this may change things a little bit when it comes down to the run for the point standings. Of course, Jesse Priest, one of those drivers running for the title this season. He does not have a win in that category with the likes of Craig Lauenslager and Curtis Kelly, Cody Kinsey, many drivers in the top 15. But he has been one of the most consistent, especially as of late. A lot of good finishes, a lot of great runs up at the front of the field. I can recall back at Atlanta, a 1.5-mile race, and really a surface that can be compared to Nashville in just a couple of ways when it comes down to how rough it is on the tires. And Priest was one of the best when it came down to the long run and running competitively well with some of the heavy hitters in our season so far that do already have wins on the calendar. And the 00 Jesse Priest comes into this race dead last in the point standings on the playoffs. 15th, 2,000 points, of course. Like I said earlier in the show, everybody 9th on back is locked in at 2,000, so they are basically all on the same level playing field going into this first race at Nashville. This is pretty much the first step to decide who's going to be a little bit higher than others when it comes down to when things wrap around at the Rockingham Speedway. But Jesse Priest really needing a good run, and it is looking his way tonight. Of course, those 2 non-playoff drivers up the front aren't really a factor when it comes down to the win. Remember, this is a win and in scenario in the playoffs, so if you do win, you do advance to that next round, and Jesse Priest would love nothing more than to advance immediately into the round of 10 and not have to worry about a very tough Rockingham Speedway that will face these drivers 1 week from tonight. So I believe we're on 2 to green here from the Nashville Superspeedway. Of course, if you're joining us here on MaxSpeedTV, of course, welcome. If you've been around since the drop of the green, well, we hope you're enjoying our coverage here of our first race in the playoffs for the 4Wide Racing Cup Series, and we have had some monumental moments. Of course, we wish we could have been around for the Kansas Speedway, a storyline to behold with Kyle Benson getting his first win of the season, locking himself into the playoffs on basically a walk-off stretch, and going into that race, a lot of concerns and basically saying, I need to win if I'm going to make it to this title hope race. And Benson in that group, and just like I mentioned, after that caution, Benson is now back on the lead lap, 15th, right there at the tail end of the longest line. So lights are off on the pace car. We'll have Jaden Porter, your race leader in the 28, to lead us into the restart zone. Cody Kinsey will be on his outside in second. Jesse Preece and Lawson Peel among the drivers to line up row number 2. Then you'll have AJ Green rounding out the top 5. Colin Forster, his teammate, will be to his outside in P6. Joe Sanchez, Brandon Banks, Craig Lautenslager, and the 5 of Marquis Harris are the last ones to file out the top 10 here, lap number 76, as we basically graze over this halfway segment of the 151 laps, 201 miles, finishing here from the Music City. Of course, that restart zone, a new addition into iRacing off of that Season 3 build. They added those restart zones in league races and hosted. Of course, not implemented in officials quite yet, but when you get into that restart zone, especially if you're the leader, have to hold a certain pace speed. You can go wherever you want in that little range of the box, and we've seen that really equalize the field, as the leader before could just go whenever the pace car comes off. That restart zone has been pivotal in a lot of the passes so far this evening off of our 3 yellows of the moment. Pace car down to pit road, lap 77, ready to bring us back to green as Jaden Porter hops on the gas in the restart zone, and we're back under green from Nashville. A good jump by Jaden Porter to hold the race lead accountable with a 0-0. Jesse Preece has moved this way into second. How about Lawson Peel trying to take advantage of Cody Kinsey into turn 3? Same deal for Colin Forster. That outside basically did not move once that green was displayed. You're riding on board with a 12. Well, Peel now in a third. And they're 3 wide for position. How about AJ Green making a step down low? Joe Sanchez to follow, but a contact on the rear end of the 48. They'll stack up just a bit. Cody Kinsey absolutely nowhere to go, just trying to hold out hope. And now here comes Colin Forster outside. Lawson Peel got maybe loose out of turn 2 and falls back to 4th. Cody Kinsey now from 2nd to 10th, -8 since the drop of the green on that restart there a couple laps back. Jaden Porter continuing to hold the lead single file through most of the field already. With that bottom line being so dominant, Colin Forster may be peaking on the inside of Jesse Preece, potentially in a couple laps, but right now is yet to pull the trigger on that move for second. Riding on board with Jaden Porter coming out of turn 4, and they're side by side all the way near the rear, but everybody single file as of lap 80. Forster looking down low and could get to the back bumper. This may be a good setup out of turn 2, and indeed it is not enough to get to the quarter panel of the 0-0 quite yet, but it's a good setup. A huge dive, though, by Lawson Peel to make it even harder for the 99. A big check up there in the bump over 3 and 4. A good exit out of Colin Forster's number 99, and to the inside he'll go on the front straightaway for second. And a textbook pass, of course. Forster faster right now than the 0-0 of Jesse Preece. That last time by set a 30.382, which was the fastest out of the top 5, apart from Lawson Peel, who set a 30.373. And the guys are really starting to maximize this short run pace. And we saw Colin Forster not really good on those long runs. It seemed as though past at least lap 25 to lap 30, the 99 was struggling deeply with that right front. Maybe he could learn the lesson, or maybe just trying to maximize these tires for right now to take the race lead and hold the clean air and the track position. And And this may be the move for the race lead that Forrester was looking for. Got the nose to the outside of Jaden Porter. Did not make anything of it going into turn 3. But we'll aim for the crossover over the bump of the throttle. You have to be very careful around. Treat it like an eggshell. And now here comes Forrester inside for the race lead. You saw just how good, though, that middle line is at playing some defense. It hasn't worked out so far in this run up until this point. Now Lawson Peel tried to open the door for second, but could not do so. They are still side by side for the lead back into turn 3. Forrester will officially clear and give another lead change here from Nashville Superspeedway. This time it's the 99 leading the race up front. Now here comes Lawson Peel. You're riding on board with the Colorado Avalanche, number 48 this time, replacing the beef colors that he usually wears each and every week. Jaden Porter is still up top and not anymore. A Green is finally able to clear. Joe Sanchez, now we haven't seen him much all tonight, that 55 Chevrolet Camaro, but Sanchez weaving his way through, and Porter struggling really tough on that outside lane. It is not working whatsoever, and now falling back similar to Kinsey on the opening restart. And watch the scuffle where Jaden Porter has to deal with some playoff drivers in that group as well. Brandon Banks to the inside. Jesse Prees now making it 3 wide. Porter will all the way in the middle before they simmer down. Still side by side, though, for position. Lounslugger moves to the inside and almost contact, indeed a bit of contact between the 13 and the 00. Remember, that's all for P6 right now on the racetrack. And it will not work for Porter, although he's able to go back to the inside, tuck his Camaro against that yellow line. Porter really falling back. Him and Kinsey dropped the anchor there on that restart as Colin Forrester made his way by, and Colin Forrester to the lead, although he's still got a bit of work to do if he wants to gap the rest of the field. Here's a look on board out of the rear end of the 99. Now they move side by side for third. Joe Sanchez trying to dial up the middle. We've seen a couple of drivers do that already tonight, but it hasn't worked to fruition as much as they would hope. But it may work in the Paul setup shop. Camaro of Joe Sanchez. He'll dive into 3 and 4. Pinch the 48. They're going to make contact there. That is a tight battle for third, just behind Lawson Peel and Colin Forrester. And they've got the likes of Banks and company in the rest of the top 5. But for Sanchez, really starting to put the pressure on the playoff competitor in the 48, your defending champion, trying to go for 2 in a row and get Stonks Motorsports their 2nd straight title in 2 different seasons. Sanchez still up top on the 48. On board with the 55, Sanchez. Green, a better entrance in the 3 and 4 will keep him basically gridlocked with the 55, and they will continue to side draft off of each other. They're still going to lose time here on Banks and company, but the good news is that Banks is now going side by side with Craig Lounslugger. That is a fight for the entrance into 5th, and Lounslugger will have the pass complete, I believe, out of turn 2. Banks not really giving much resistance, and so Lounslugger will have that position hold onto the inside of turns 3 and 4. They continue to duel on for third. AJ Green, Joe Sanchez, more contact. We have a battle for the race lead. Lawson Peel to the inside of the front. And bring the 5-time winner into P1, a place that he's been familiar with all season long, into the final 61 laps of this 200-mile Nashville Superspeedway race, the first one of the playoffs in Season 4. And Lawson Peel to the front. We'll see if he can try and gap that last time by. Set a 30.919, the fastest out of anyone in the top 4. Only one faster was Craig Lounslugger in 5th with a 30.838. And Green, Joe Sanchez, they have not let up whatsoever. A fantastic battle for the top 3, but they will invite a couple of more patrons this time. 13, Craig Lounslugger may make it 3 wide. By the time they head into turn 3, will not duck underneath the 48, so he'll follow in his footsteps. And it is only getting tougher. More contact. They'll weave up the track. Here comes the 13 to make it 3 wide out of turn 4. and you have to be really patient when it comes down to making passes here, especially in Nashville Superspeedway. I mentioned that the middle line could play into an effect when it comes down to making a defensive stretch happen. And that 55 of Sanchez basically exemplified what you can do to keep that inside car at bay and leave them without an advantage and leave you both side by side. The problem with these cars, especially way different from the latter stages of the Gen 6 era on iRacing, is that the side draft was not as heavy as it used to be. In these cars, though, side draft is very effective when it comes down to being side by side with the driver. And this time, no flip-flop position. Sanchez makes the crossover move on the inside, but no resistance by Green this time through. Sanchez officially clears for fourth. And you hear the revs there moving up through. Again, drivers now starting to move into fourth gear, shift down on the sequential gearbox here in these NASCAR Next Gen Cup Series cars. And for Sanchez, of course, very early shifts down into fourth gear, the entrance of turn 3. Here's a look at Brandon Banks trying to work underneath AJ Green. That will be for fifth. They're side by side even further behind. How about the 71 of Curtis Kelly? We saw him in the midst of a battle earlier on. He is a lap car, so of course not running for track position right now, but just aiming to find his place here amongst the rest of the competition, as here comes Kyle Benson in P10 to the inside. So up front, Lawson Peel up by 1/10, 2/10 of a second, give or take, between each and every lap. Colin Forrester still holding strong behind in P2. Of course, you saw that great fight for third happen lap after lap. Craig Lounslugger, though, was the third party in all of that. Spoiled it all. Now he is racking up your top 3. Joe Sanchez into P4, and AJ Green, of course, in your top 5. Brandon Banks just behind, trying to tally through, and they may go side by side indeed for the last spot into the top 5. How about Jaden Porter trying to work his way back into the mix after falling out of the race lead and falling out of the top 10 for a while? And Porter making his way back through. Brandon Banks working the middle lane on AJ Green. It will not work out at turn 2, and they'll stay side by side on the back straightaway. It's been a great battle watching AJ Green through, but the one thing to note about the likes of AJ Green is he continues to battle through, especially on that inside lane. He's the one using up the most tires. Of course, the understeer becoming a big factor, and we mentioned at the top of the show in that first long green flag run that the Stocks Motorsports cars are really the ones, usually the victims of that understeer condition, wearing out the right front, putting a little bit too much wear on it in that run past 20 laps. And for the 48 of AJ Green, he's been having to really work through that. We've seen multiple times against Joe Sanchez where he weaves up slowly through the concrete surface, and almost did so there against Jaden Porter in this battle for P6. So Green may be struggling with these Goodyear Eagles just a little bit more than he used to at the top of the run, and now he's going to lose out because of it. Mark Harris now working to the outside for position. We're back to the top 3, and Craig Lounslugger has caught up, seemingly putting up laps in the 31.5s, faster than your leaders so far, as Peel sets a 31.6. Same deal for Colin Forster, and another time portion gain for Craig Lounslugger, that time by a 31.488. Remember, we talked about it earlier, while he was running around the top 5, he is one of the best, one of the most experienced when it comes down to these tracks. Remember his position at Darlington earlier in season 4, how good he did. Unfortunately, he didn't get to victory lane there, but he finished in the top 3 and put a really solid fight up for the win. And at these tracks is where he performs, where he operates at his smoothest. Now here he comes to the inside of Colin Forster for second. An easy pass there for Lounslugger, and you have to imagine the tire wear on the 13 way better than the guys up at the front. They've been pretty much clawing their way through the field for these guys. Even first on back, Lawson Peel, Colin Forster, Brandon Banks, all these guys have had a lot to work through on that run on the restart, getting around Jaden Porter, getting around Cody Kinsey, getting around everybody else. And Lounslugger and company doing very well to keep their tires intact. You can add him, Brandon Banks, Joe Sanchez to that mark. They've done well to keep their tires underneath them. Actually, Mark Harris, you can add him there as well as he works to the inside. Sanchez moving way up. The 14 degrees of banking got way understeery there out of turn 2. Will catch it out to the back straightaway. AJ Green will try to retaliate, making a move back down low. And contact between the two again. In at 3 and 4, this time all the way up the racetrack. Sanchez almost got put in the wall, and he'll turn the 48 on the front straightaway in the middle of the field. Green is able to save it, but the caution flag waves once again with under 50 laps to go from Nashville. Sanchez, I think, had enough of the 48. There's a look at Sanchez's Camaro. No damage, of course, with the slight contact. Neither is there damage for Green's Colorado Avalanche Camaro. But the tensions are boiling in the hot Lebanon sun. As the caution flag will wave, the field will have a chance to step down pit road, get some fresh Goodyear Eagles, and get them enough fuel to last them for the rest of this race. And we'll take a look and see exactly how this all happened. Coming out of turn 4 on the back straightaway, of course, I mentioned many times where that 48 had done that move there, but it just wasn't as dramatic as this time through the understeer, pretty much overcoming that 48, and Sanchez says, I'm done with that, and gives him the hook. The pit maneuver, and around the 48 went. Unfortunately, we'll lose him on the track position. It's good enough that he did not hit anything and will stay clean. Here's a look on board on the rear end of the 48. Nothing you could do there. Of course, Green just trying to hold on to his race car. These guys were battling hard lap after lap after lap. And you can tell the right front was basically screaming for some grip on that 48's behalf. But now they'll be able to take a step down to pit road and have another batch of service. There's Lawson Peel getting into his stall for, once again, another time, this time under yellow. Colin Forster, Craig Lounslager, the rest of the group coming in for some tires and some fuel. We'll see how they all fare and whether AJ Green would do anything different. He'll come to a slow halt right behind Colin Forster. Lawson Peel going to be the first one out. Colin Forster will try to beat him to the line, but it will not be good enough. Lounslager gets there for second, third for Colin Forster, fourth for Brandon Banks, and Jaden Porter, a nice move into the top 5 coming out of the pit lane as AJ Green will spend a couple more seconds into his stall specifically. And I believe we'll get some damage repair on the right rear. You see a bit of the scuffing there around that yellow and red Colorado logo. That is the Colorado flag. For those who don't know, of course, repping the Colorado Avalanche tonight on their Stanley Cup victory here this year in 2022. So caution out at lap 104 of 151. We were basically in our second long green flag run, and we were almost about to question the longevity of these tires going into the rest of the race and whether these drivers were going to be able to make it. But this call right here, we saw many of them stretch into the lap 50, lap 55 range on the pit window, so we should be more than good enough. Given the fact that we have a caution here, will allow these guys to take an opportunity to clutch and coast and save some fuel, so this should get all of the guys to the end of the race. And now it's just a straight up run on tires and longevity. We'll see if more cautions do breed them by the time we go back to the green flag racing zone and the Geico restart zone. But at the moment, this should be the last time we'll see these guys on pit road for fuel. For tires, of course, that is a very different equation. We've seen it matter here a lot, and we saw the difference on tires, fresh rubber versus worn rubber in that first one after the first yellow, with many guys including Jesse Prees and of course Jaden Porter and the likes of them coming down pit road at that stretch. It was a 12-lap difference, and we saw how big of a difference it was on the guys who stayed out the whole race up until that point. But everybody on an equal playing ground as the lap 105 caution flag will wave once again. Lawson Peel in your race lead, looking for his 6th win in 2022 and the one that will advance him into the round of 10. We'll take a short break, but you won't miss a thing. Our coverage continues here on MaxSpeedTV for race number 1 of the playoffs of the 4Wide Racing Cup Series in Season 4.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12-Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Back under the green flag here in race number 1 of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series playoffs in Season 4. Lawson Peel, your race leader, off of the restart here, lap 108. Kenneth Wano in the broadcast booth as we continue our coverage right here on MaxSpeedTV. So happy to have you with us as the battle for second is heating up between two red-bannered cars. Brandon Banks, the Drinking Bros Racing Chevrolet Camaro, moving to the outside of the 13 Craig Lauenslager, and Brandon Banks, for the first time tonight, enters the top 3. We've seen Banks be very consistent at many of these tracks, whether it's intermediates, the short tracks, the road courses, or even tracks like these in between the mix. And Banks having one of the fastest cars so far, sitting a lap 0.03 of a second faster than your leader, Lawson Peel. So Brandon Banks is making a statement here in the final 40 or so odd laps here from Nashville Superspeedway. Colin Forster, though, may have a say about it for second. This time a good exit out of turn 4, and Forster trying to peek in on the back bumper of the 88. Right on board on the rear end, the Amazon colors there on the deck lid of the 88, Brandon Banks. Lauenslager falls back to 4th. Let's look at the rest of the field. Practically nobody double file rather. Everybody single file throughout the field, but they are getting awfully close, 1st through 4th. And by the way, guess who's into the top 5? Kyle Benson. We saw him involved in the first caution tonight with the 22 of Eric Schaefer, but Benson is all of a sudden back in this game, trying to get his second win of the season and his first of the playoffs. Peel still trying to hold on to what he can, as Forster was almost under fire for a moment by Craig Lauenslager, but that has since single filed out, and another solid exit out of turn 4 may bring Forster into the position to go to the inside of Brandon Banks. Banks will cover off back to turn 1, and no move quite yet out of your top 4, but Peel moves awfully high, will swerve up the racetrack, and now here comes Brandon Banks for the lead. Brandon Banks for the first time trying to take P1 away from the most dominant driver, arguably all season long. Peel will stay up high, but it's Brandon Banks who will clear out of 4. Brandon Banks, your race leader as of lap 112. And now here comes Forster inside, a crossover into turn 1. Not going to be able to make the pass complete. He'll stay even with Peel, who gets a little bit loose in the middle of 1 and 2. And it is insanely close between your leaders. Peel will have a run off of the 14 degrees of banking. Forster trying to maintain patient on the inside as Brandon Banks laps to the bank. This time, 114 laps complete from Nashville. And Craig Launslager in the mix of the battle as well. He may put his nose into this. Remember, he was watching the battle between AJ Green and the 55 of Joe Sanchez before they got into each other. And Launslager watched them both move up the racetrack and said, all right, thank you, bye, have a good time. And he moved into position to the top 3. So Launslager just trying to hold his own here as they remain door to door for second. And a solid run so far built up at this track for Launslager, and same deal on the recovery end for Kyle Benson. Remember, these are all playoff drivers in the top 5. The only one in this top 10 really not in playoff contention is the 28 Jaden Porter, who's in P6, Eric Schaefer, who's in P7, and that is it. Everybody else in the top 10, apart from 2 drivers in this playoff hunt for Season 4 of the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series. That time, way tight, went Lawson Peel close to the outside wall, and they are continuing to lose time to Banks, although not as much as you anticipated. They're still under at least half a second to your race leader, but ultimately, things will get dicey if they get closer and the tires start to wear off. Remember, fellow Stonks Motorsports teammate AJ Green in this similar situation with Joe Sanchez as they were in that great battle, multiple laps on through, but the right front wears significantly on that inside, especially when the guy up top is trying to pinch you as much as possible. And Forster still keeping his head in the game for second as Brandon Banks continues to run away back to turn 1. And finally, the move made, a slide job up the track in turn 2. Peel going to have to hold on to what he can and almost struck the outside wall. Will duck off in front of Craig Launslager in the 13. And he'll keep in a third, but Forster finally able to clear the Napa Auto Parts number 12 Chevrolet Camaro. And all sights on Brandon Banks for P1. And closing in on the final 30 laps here from the virtual Nashville Superspeedway. Banks, a newest leader. He has yet to lead all race long. And Colin Forster looking to take it all away. Your top 4, top 5, basically under a blanket right now. Basically all of them within at least half a second to a full second right now. Well, this is still awfully close in the final run. Again, I mentioned in that last yellow flag, the tires are going to be the biggest concern. Fuel may not be. These guys can practically make it all the way to the end after that last splash of fuel, but the Goodyear Eagles and how long you can stretch it is going to be still the conversation point by the time we get to the end of this race, and it may work in favor one or the other. Maybe a caution comes out that evens the playing field once again. Maybe we have some 2-tire calls. But ultimately, still no decision just yet as Forster continues to remain behind the 88 of Brandon T. Banks. And Lawson Peel works to the apron trying to get to the bottom, but just can't do it. Back to turn 1. And now Peel, a good maneuver into turn 1, will give him the opportunity to slice it on the inside. Craig Launslager, again, this third party, who's been watching this battle lap after lap, but has decided to do nothing about it because they haven't simmered quite yet. And again, they will pinch each other to the inside of the racetrack. This time, flip-flop once more. Shades of AJ Green. Joe Sanchez back to the line and complete lap number 120. And almost contact between Peel and Forster. Now it officially gives space for the 13 of Craig Launslager. And Launslager will work to the bottom of the 99 and will duck out just a bit. An earlier entrance on the brakes into turn 3, but it may be good enough. Forster trying to peek him off. Now Jaden Porter works to the inside of Kyle Benson. A solid textbook pass for the entrance into the top 5. They're still side by side for third, back to turn 1. And so as we're completing these laps, around 30 laps to go from the Nashville Superspeedway, we have a question over in the YouTube chat by Francisco Bacchiao, unfortunately not here on our broadcast booth nor the racetrack tonight, but he asks about a brief summary of the race so far. Well, it's been wild up in the moment. We've had a lot of green flag runs, a lot of contact. Our first caution involving Kyle Benson, Eric Schaefer, as Schaefer got into the quarter panel entering turn 3. And Kyle Benson, obviously, you see him in the shot just behind Colin Forster, has since picked it up to capture P6 and may even get an entrance into the top 5. But these guys have gone on a lot of long green flag runs. They've been spliced in the middle by some quickie yellows, mostly involving 1 or 2 cars. We haven't seen any dramatic big crashes so far here tonight from the Nashville Superspeedway. It's been a relatively clean race, and most of the conversations have been around the tires and fuel. We saw our first batch of green flag pit stops in that opening run after that first yellow between Schaefer and Benson, but then it was spliced up by a caution right in the middle of our commercial break with Curtis Kelly and Lance Hill getting into contact. And we had another caution after that, Christopher Bishop, CJ Munier getting into contact. And then our most recent was a little bit of beef between AJ Green and Joe Sanchez as things are getting tight around there inside turn 3. Lance Hill bullying his way through Forrester for 6th. And a brave move set by the Stonks Motorsports teammate. We've seen them give each other no mercy, especially as of late. And Lance Hill went for the space, got in through the gap, and almost pushed Colin Forrester up to the outside wall. Good news is we stay clean, we stay green from Nashville. And now here comes Lounslager on board with the Toyota Camry. There's some lap traffic up ahead of your leader, Brandon Banks, but so far not a factor into the equation. Lounslager trying to back it in off of turn 1. A worse entry for your leader, Brandon Banks, so they're sticking within at least 3 or so tenths of a second right now to P1. Around 25 laps to go. Here comes Lounslager to the inside for P2 on Lawson Peel. And we've seen some of the drivers in these long runs be the best at managing their tires, Lounslager being one of them. He's usually the driver setting the fastest pace through a long run. But don't look now, Jaden Porter making it 3 wide for second into turn 1. Will it work? Answer so far is yes. Under 1, under 2, Jaden Porter to second. A beautiful move by your former race leader. Again, his 3rd race in his 4-Wide Racing Cup Series career. We logged in his debut at Watkins Glen, where he finished 4th. Behind the driver he's running in front of right now, Craig Lounslager, for 3rd. Then ran in top 3. Most of the race at Kansas, finished the checkered flag in that P3 spot. And now in a position to take another podium away. Porter has been a standout rookie driver and trying to do what Lawson Pio did back in season 4. And they are again side-by-side racing. Remember the chronicles between Sanchez and Green? Not over yet. Back to turn 3. This is a fight for 10th. As a look on board the inside cockpit, moving up through 5th gear, AJ Green gonna try to side draft Joe Sanchez going back to turn 1. And when have we talked about them not being together all night long after they went side by side for almost about 10 laps. That time though, AJ Green gives way to the 55, so some tailwind there to bring the 55 up to 10th, and AJ Green will look at it and say, all right, not gonna be worth fighting for at the moment, so gonna hang in there and stay single file. One of the lap cars just hit pit road, but Jaden Porter has been lights out last time by as they cross the line. 31.451, 3/10 faster than your leader, Brandon Banks, back to turn 1 and 2. Lance Hill, you just heard him tag the outside wall there out of turn 2, but looks to be no significant problem for Hill. We will stay green, and as we come out of turn 4, we will approach the final 21 laps here from the Nashville Superspeedway, and here comes a nose underneath Brandon Banks in the 88. 28, Jaden Porter to the inside for P1. And we talked about how good Jaden Porter has been, of course, the first race at Watkins Glen, how good he was after the little connection issues, but backed it up at the 1.5 miler in America's Heartland, Kansas Speedway, and is trying to get his first 4-Wide Racing Cup Series victory. Brandon Banks holding strong on the outside, but the nose advantage to the Alex Bowman paint scheme. Jaden Porter gets to the line first and will hold the lead back to turn 1, still side by side. And if they continue this way, you see the white and red car in the far side of the action. The 13, Craig Lounslager. We've seen him, been here multiple times before. Behind AJ Green, Joe Sanchez got by them both. Behind Lawson Peel and Brandon Banks got by those drivers as well, or Colin Forrester rather. And Lounslager may have a chance for second. They're side by side for 4th. Kyle Benson now working to the inside And what a drive it's been for Benson in his 213 Simware Camaro. Will work down low, will weave in, diming the arc on the corner, and he'll take away position number 4 out of turn 2. It has been a race of endurance, a race of long green flag run skill. And for these guys right now, it is working to their favor. Remember, Benson, of course, involved in that first caution with Eric Schaefer, but picking it back up, a huge recovery. Benson, after the walk-off win at Kansas, is backing his performance through, and now we'll try a look underneath. Craig Laumslager will dive into turn 3. That is indeed for third. So Benson now starting to put a foothold into this podium section of the racetrack. And setting laps faster than Jaden Porter and Brandon Banks. So this may not be over as we close in on 17 laps to go. Again, fuel not a concern here in the final 17 laps. It's just all about how far you can stretch the Goodyear Eagles. And speaking of recovery for Kyle Benson, also a recovery for Eric Schaefer. Didn't talk about him too much after that caution, involving himself in the 10. But Eric Schaefer, after starting back in 9th and falling as deep as pretty much dead last, 21st on the lead lap, he's now up to 5th. So as we work through the final 15 laps of this race from the virtual Nashville Superspeedway, we'll give you an update on the DNFs and the drivers 1 lap down or more here right now through the field. We currently have 3 cars DNF. Of course, your league owner Tyler Murray had a problem earlier in the race and junked the car. He is out in 21st. Adam Alashire, we also mentioned his DNF earlier on in tonight's coverage before halfway. He is P20 right now. Tyler Warner is the newest addition onto that DNF list in the 33. He will end this race officially in P19. Curtis Kelly right now 18th, 4 laps down, and Mark Harris in the 5. We saw a strong run from him earlier in tonight's event, but he has since fallen to 17th, 1 lap down on the racetrack, and he desperately needs a caution if he wants to get back in this race and to put him on the lead lap into that lucky dog position. But as we come across the line, we will reach 14 laps to go. Telemetry tells us if we stay green, roughly another 7.5 minutes to get to the checkered flag. But the battle is in the top 5, and even the top 3 are not over quite yet. Here is Kyle Benson approaching quickly on an 88 of Brandon T. Banks. And we've seen a lot of differences in the braking zones here in Nashville. Of course, shifting points as well. You rode on board with Joe Sanchez earlier in the race, and he shifts immediately as he's hopping on the brakes. Some drivers like to wait for the middle of the apex in the corner to grab 4th gear and then bring the revs up by the time they exit out of turn 4. But we've seen a lot of the guys who are on the best rubber in the long run using the longevity to their advantage via having an earlier braking marker, just trying to roll through the corner and then slowly pressuring in that throttle pedal. And we've seen the Stocks Motorsports guys overuse that, tried to get a little bit too greedy through the corners, and especially with the amount of underbody downforce that this car has at a relatively smooth track. But for Benson, Laumslager, and even for your race leader, Jaden Porter, they've used the early braking zone to their advantage, although it's a later one here for Kyle Benson. This time will work side by side against Banks for 2nd. And this may stifle the run to the front that Benson was hoping for. We've seen a lot of the guys on the outside play heavy defense, and Banks, of course, not letting up. These are 2 playoff drivers after all, running for the title. Benson swerves a little bit high, almost gets into the 88, and they will stay lodged for 2nd, and it'll open the door for Jaden Porter to move away from the competition to try and secure his first ever 4-wide Racing Cup victory with 11 to go. Benson still down low. Banks playing defense, and Craig Laumslager again waiting in the ranks for something to happen dramatically. Eric Schaefer, you can also add him to that group, still single file. And as they do that again, more lost time to your race leader as Banks slaps the outside wall. And now here comes Laumslager with a push to the 10 to move him in a 2nd. And contact between Banks and Laumslager into turn 1. Banks way up the racetrack in turn 1. Fortunately, keeps it off the outside wall, but that may do it on the run for the race victory for the Geico Chevrolet Camaro as Lounslogger and Banks made side-by-side contact. And Lounslogger will weave his way into third. Eric Schaefer will stifle into fourth. And that was a huge move there for Lounslogger and Benson. Of course, it was the saving grace for the 10, losing so much time. Now 1.3 seconds behind your race leader. But for Craig Lounslogger, it almost got insanely dangerous. This time, Eric Schaefer, a dive deep on the brakes in turn 3, will get to the quarter panel. And we'll even have a nose ahead out of turn 4. So another side-by-side battle here, this time within the top 5, or at least the latter half of it. As Craig Lounslogger will remain to the inside. Schaefer holding his hope up top. And maybe Brandon Banks can get back in it. So maybe the run for the top 3 isn't quite over if you're that 88. If these guys stay side by side, and there are still more cars in the mid-pack. Remember, Lawson Peel running for the race lead. He has since settled into P6. You watch behind, nestled the 00, Jesse Prees, another playoff driver. He, at one point, had a lead in this race. Joe Sanchez in 8th, Tony Kivet in 9th. Remember, AJ Green behind Joe Sanchez in the midst of the top 10. He has since fallen back to P12 and in a battle with Cody Kinsey for that very spot. So Green may fall another spot short. It has not been a long run night for the Stonks Motorsports guys. And despite having a lot of good qualifying pace to hold first through fourth in the first 2 rows, the longevity of their cars hasn't been the best here from a very rough Nashville Superspeedway. This time by for Jaden Porter, it'll be 6 laps to go from the Music City as Porter almost strikes the outside wall, but only a handful of miles left before the Ally Chevrolet gets his first ever win in 2022 as Lounslogger finally breaks free of the 22 for third. And there you look at the cost of the battle between Schaefer and Lounslogger. More time lost to your race leaders in first, second, and third, and even then some. They have put a gap amongst themselves. That is a lap car actually just in front of Kyle Benson. So Jaden Porter adding more of a buffer between himself and the 10, and that time by Benson a little bit faster, but again, not as big of a jump in that lap time as we've seen from the driver of the 10. Again, more even this time by a fresh tire car, that is Curtis Kelly. So he'll move his way around the 28. Porter not going to give him any trouble. And this time by, coming out of turn 4, Jaden Porter will grab 4 laps to go from the Music City. Remember, last season it was Francisco Bacallao, a non-playoff spoiler, who dominated the race and got his first win of Season 3. Jaden Porter looking to do the same with 4 laps left. There's a battle for 6 underway. Jesse Prees finally ends a nose underneath the Chase Elliott machine. Lawson Peel, of course, he's been falling back on this long run. Not the run at the end that Lawson Peel was looking for, of course. He does have a pretty substantial points cap, 26 points to his credit over the driver in P10. The last one before the cut line arises, and Peel strikes the outside wall, almost weaved back into traffic on Joe Sanchez, but may lose another spot here as he may end up in 8th and maybe 9th if Tony Kivet can get there in enough time. But Peel may have some more work to do if he wants to keep that points buffer alive and comfortable and give him some more solace by the time we reach to Rockingham Speedway in 1 week time. And the gap from first to second remaining at around 1.5 seconds between Jaden Porter and Kyle Benson. This time by only 2 laps left, 2.6 miles from Nashville Superspeedway for Jaden Porter in the 28. And remember, back in Richmond, Lawson Peel, who was a rookie driver in Season 3, obviously had no effect into the championship, no effect for the playoffs. Got the win anyway, had a huge morale boost, got another win in the season finale at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and spoiled the party for the next season to come. Jaden Porter looking to follow in the footsteps. White flag in the air from Nashville. Jaden Porter, after his first start at a road course at Watkins Glen, put up a solid performance, good enough for 4th, stepped it up with a 3rd place finish. And now this time by, as he looks into the final two corners, Jaden Porter will have an opportunity like no other and will get his first win in Season 4. Jaden Porter brings the Ally Machine to victory lane for the first time. Porter, your winner from Nashville Superspeedway. Kyle Benson comes home in second. That is going to be a huge boost for the 10. After crashing earlier in the race, Craig Lautenslager finishes in the top 3. There's a celebratory weave around for the 10 of Kyle Benson. Eric Schaefer, Brandon Banks, the final ones in the top 5. But the veterans giving their congratulations to the rookie driver, Jaden Porter, on his first win. And an unbelievable job. Led practically the most laps out of anyone tonight from the Nashville Superspeedway, and 2 seasons in a row we have a brand new winner, and for the first time in a while we have 3 different winners in the past 3 races as Porter burns it down from Nashville, his first win of 2022. And we've seen this trend happen over and over through the past season or so. The rookie drivers making a statement on the rest of the field. We had it last season with Colin Forrester breaking away for his first 3 wins of the season in the first 3 races, starting with Auto Club. We had Lawson Peel break in the latter half of Season 3, and look at the star he's become this season with 5 wins on the calendar. And Jaden Porter making his first start just right before the playoffs began, and now becomes a playoff spoiler, getting his first win, as I believe may have beached it there. Actually, no, we'll back it up into the grass and we'll continue his celebration. Jaden Porter, a winner here tonight for the very first time. Let's take a look at the full field results, see exactly where every driver finished at the end of 151 laps in one of the cleanest races we've seen in recent memory in the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series. Jaden Porter, your winner by 1.8 seconds over Kyle Benson. Benson needed that run after the crash with Eric Schaefer going into turn 3. Craig Lautenslager ends up in 3rd place. We'll talk to all 3 of them before we wrap up our coverage tonight here on MaxSpeedTV. Eric Schaefer ends up tonight in P4. Brandon Banks wraps up the top 5. Of course, Banks was in the race lead for a while in that last run, but just did not have the tire life to keep it intact, although Banks is going to walk away with a myriad of good points, and basically everybody in the top 10, mostly playoff drivers in this field, will have a good advantage as well. Jesse Prees ends up in P6, a great result for him overall, and Jesse Prees only adding to his motto of consistency here in this season. Joe Sanchez, we saw him tag along with AJ Green, although he's able to recover for P7. Lawson Peel had the race lead at one point, and it looked like he was going to run away, but just could not do it in that final run. Finishes 8th. Tony Kibbett, we saw him do magnificently in that first long green flag run with the freshest tires. He is P9. Lance Hill in the 38 ends up rounding out your current top 10. Colin Forrester, his teammate, and his teammate behind him, 11th, 12th, Colin Forrester and AJ Green. Cody Kinsey ends up tonight P13. Michael Newbraw finishes tonight in 14th. Christopher Bishop, we saw him in a wreck earlier on tonight along with CJ Munier, but they are able to pick it up for 15th and 16th. CJ Munier is the final one on the lead lap before you find 1 lap down driver Mark Harris. Curtis Kelly 3 laps down, and then our batch of ones at DNF tonight. Unfortunately, Tyler Werner out of this race. 62 laps down. Adam Alashire, 94 laps down in 20th. And your league owner, Tyler Murray, in 21st. He's going to have a lot of work to do by the time we reach Rockingham Speedway in 1 week time. So as we get ourselves at least relieved here after this finish, Jaden Porter, your winner here tonight. And I don't believe we have anyone in the voice chats right now in this Nashville Superspeedway race, so I'm not sure if we are able to officially interview all 3 of our top 3 finishers, Jaden Porter, Kyle Benson, and the 13 of Craig Lautenslager. I believe now we have Jaden Porter, so we can bring him up into the broadcast booth and get his thoughts on his very first win here in Season 4 of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series. And bringing in our winner tonight from Nashville Superspeedway, Jaden Porter, for the very first time. Jaden, first of all, your emotions after this dominating victory from the Music City.
Yeah, it was crazy because in practice I didn't think I was going to be able to be anywhere close to winning. And with it being a playoff race, I didn't really want to get in any playoff drivers' way. But after that first caution, I took tires and got to the lead. Something must have clicked. I don't know exactly what clicked to bring that speed out, but I'm glad it did.
And again, one of the fastest cars in this field, 73 laps led. And I'll turn over to the next question off of that point that you mentioned on the latter half of that statement. The playoff drivers, of course, it's a playoff race. The first one, you're surrounded by red-bannered cars. Kyle Benson, Craig Launslager. You look at Brandon Banks, you look at Lawson Peel, the amount of drivers that are running for this title this season. And with your pace, how do you balance the speed that you have and trying to make a statement for the win while also making sure you're careful around those guys and making sure you don't ruin their chances for a title in this first round?
Yeah, that was a big part of the race. When I come into this race, I knew I was in the playoffs, so the last thing I wanted to do is wreck any playoff driver and ruin their playoffs because I'm not racing for a championship, so no need to do that. But I feel like if I just race the same way I've been racing and not put too much pressure on racing next to a playoff driver, then mistakes won't happen next to a playoff driver.
So you avoid all the mistakes and you practically run a perfect race in this Chevrolet Camaro for your first win. And I think a fun fact here too, in the last two races since we've introduced Nashville Superspeedway, we had Francisco as the first winner. We have you as the second, both non-playoff drivers and both rookie drivers as well. Now, moving forward, of course, more playoff races left, but for you, more opportunities to win. What is it looking like for the rest of the season on your journey to try and get some more wins on the season before it's all over?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to tell at what racetracks I could win because with the car being new and new tracks, you don't really know. But, I mean, just building confidence for next season so then by this time next season, I'll be maybe racing for a championship, so just building confidence for that and, about it. Build confidence for the rest of the season.
Well, no doubt, a lot of confidence has to be built after tonight's win from Nashville Superspeedway. 1.8 seconds over Kyle Benson in P2. A beautiful win here from the Music City. But before we let you go, Jaden, on this win, anybody you want to thank for making it all possible?
Yeah, I want to thank Tyler B. Murray for, hosting this race, being the league owner and all that. I want to thank my team, everybody there. Kind of had to just brain fart what the name of the team was for a second, but yeah, all of them. And all of my friends have helped me on here. So.
We certainly appreciate the time, Jaden. On behalf of our team here at MaxSpeedTV, we want to send you a warm congratulations here from the Nashville Superspeedway, your very first win in Season 4. Go enjoy the celebrations, and hopefully we get to see you at Rockingham in 1 week time.
All right, thank you.
Jaden Porter, 73 laps led en route to his very first 4-Wide Racing Cup Series victory. History made on behalf of that Ally Chevrolet, but also history made in some cases looking at the context of this race, because Kyle Benson, you were crashed around the early portion of this race. Turn 3, Eric Schaefer made contact with you. You went around into the outside wall. You burned off the faster pair, and for a moment, it looked like it was going to be a risky call for the rest of this race. How are you able to muster this insane recovery to give yourself second tonight?
Just had the race clean after the caution and just had to keep my head down, make sure I make smart moves. I mean, there was a lot of heat going on tonight with people, and just had to navigate through that and try to make sure my car was all right, had to manage tires. But I mean, it was crazy tonight. Dirty air was crazy. Really couldn't turn in dirty air, but when you're being that far back, it's definitely hard. But I was managed to come up to second, and I'm cool where I finished, man. I think I had something for Jaden, but just got caught up racing with people and blew my tires off. So really just trying to do my deed and trying to do my job.
And of course, tires, a very big conversation point here at Nashville Superspeedway just because this track is so abrasive. It was the same with the Gen 6 cars, and it's the same this time with Gen 7. How are you able to somewhat manage the tires over a run, especially given the fact that this track doesn't have a lot of lanes you can operate in, and also the fact that the dirty air that you mentioned, coupled with the fact that we had a lot of long green flag runs here tonight as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely hard to keep tires under it. I really couldn't keep tires under it until about 20 laps to go in the race, so it was definitely weird. I not really have a lot of seat time in these cars, but I'm lucky enough that I got up here. Just with how the night went on, and just now sitting here in second with the decent points going into the next race is not bad. Definitely had to manage a lot more things than usual with shifting and getting more rotation out of the corners and all that stuff. So it was really mixed bag.
So 6 points above the cut line in the playoffs going into tonight's race. And of course, off of that walk-off win at Kansas, I wish we were broadcasting that one because it would have been a cinematic storytelling experience to go into the playoffs that late. But 6 points ahead now. Should be more points, maybe more of a buffer going into Rockingham. Second and final race of the round of 15. What are your thoughts about that race moving forward?
Let's just hope we get there. Just gonna take it one race at a time. Got some decent points going into it. So, more or less just trying to keep the car clean, having a good shot for the championship this year. I think I have a good shot. So other than that, I mean, really it's just trying to manage my tires, make sure I don't try to make any more enemies, and just try to get my way through.
Well, Rockingham is surely going to be a lot of fun, Kyle. Of course, second place finish, a great points day tonight in the playoff grid. But before we let you go, anybody you want to thank for making this run happen?
Yeah, I want to thank 213 Simware. They're hopping on this season. Just great people and great sponsor to hop on this season. TJ's team, charity for pediatric cancer. Got to thank 4 Wide for having it on this season. You for the broadcast. We're having this is probably one of the better seasons this year, and with the talent coming in, and we're probably one of the more competitive leagues. So happy about that. Everybody that join, everybody that just comes in and races. We try to have fun. So other than that, man, that's pretty much about it.
Well, we certainly appreciate the time, Kyle. Of course, on behalf of our team, we want to send you a congratulations on the second place finish. And, of course, best of luck at Rockingham and the rest of the playoffs. Congratulations once again.
Thank you, man.
That's Kyle Benson in the 10-213 Simware Chevrolet Camaro, who racks it in second. That is going to be a big momentum booster going into Rockingham 1 week from tonight. And the same could be said for the driver who rounds out your top 3 here tonight from Nashville Superspeedway, Craig Lownslugger. And Craig, every time we get through these tracks, the sort of intermediate but not intermediate tracks, the sort of short track feel but not short track feel tracks, these abrasive surfaces, what makes you so good at these tracks as you finish third tonight?
I think I've always been a good tire saver, and with the new update, these cars became more tire-saving cars. But this is probably my second best track, even though it's a recent addition to the game. And I think the ability to sort of turn with the rear tires a little bit, even though it's lesser with this car, I think helps me. And I kind of figured that out a little bit more with this car and that track the midway through the race, and I had a fast car late in the race. But yeah, it definitely suits me, the long off-throttle time, kind of slippery tracks like this.
And indeed, you proved that one of the better drivers in the long run, especially in that last stint where you were one of the better tire savers in. I want to ask you a question not only about tire saving, but about track position, because it seemed like almost at every point in this race, you had a moment where you were behind drivers going side by side, lap after lap after lap. First of all, walk us through how it is to be behind a battle like that over and over again, but to just have the patience enough to wait for a moment where you can make that move and gain those positions.
Yeah, it's very frustrating because on one hand you want to just kind of lay back a little bit and save your tires because it's going to pay off in the long run, but you do have to get around people. Otherwise, people from behind they'll try to go around you like the 28 did when I was side by side with the 12. But definitely in the last run, I think my ability to win the race was significantly hampered by people fighting in front of me or fighting beside me. But I think almost track position doesn't necessarily matter on the long run. It's more about how efficiently you can get around cars. And unfortunately, I couldn't really do that the last run, but I was definitely happy with holding third place late in the run because I knew the 22 was coming and wasn't sure if I was going to get the 88. But I think just the efficiency of going around cars is huge there.
So a third place finish, of course, a huge boost when it comes to the point standings and the rest of the playoff grid. You came into this race only 2 points ahead of that cut line for the top 10. Now moving into the second and final race of this first round at Rockingham Speedway. First of all, what are your thoughts about that track, the challenges you're going to experience, and your mindset to try and keep that point foothold over that cut line to advance into the next round?
I think just kind of check out a little bit and just run smart and maybe a little on the conservative side, because I think I should have a pretty good point margin to get to the next round. And Rockingham's not one of my best tracks, though you'd think it would be, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe possibly try to get some playoff points at the midway stage or something, but I think just do what I need to do to get across the line in one piece and with enough points to advance to the next round.
So a good finish nonetheless, and it sets you up nicely for Rockingham, North Carolina in just 1 week time. Craig, before we let you go, on the third place finish from Nashville, anybody you want to thank for making this run happen?
I normally just thank everyone who shows up, anyone who runs clean this league, and then Tyler Murray for putting it on. It's a lot of fun when things go well.
Well, we certainly appreciate the time, Craig. Of course, on behalf of our team here at MaxSpeedTV, we want to send you congratulations on your third place finish here tonight from the Music City, and we hope to see you over at Nashville, Rockingham Speedway 1 week from tonight. Best of luck in the rest of the playoffs.
Thanks, I'll be there.
So Craig Lautenschlager ends up as the final driver in our interview segment, and of course him and Kyle Benson, a lot to look forward to when it comes down to the playoffs 1 week from tonight, where we will decide the 10 drivers that will move in after round number 1. We'll take a look at the rest of the schedule just before we wrap things up here on MaxSpeedTV. Of course, cross out Nashville Superspeedway, our first playoff race. That's settled. That's the jitters all gone. And now we get to move on. Rockingham Speedway in Rockingham, North Carolina. Once again, another appearance out of this very antique and very amazing to run short track over in Rockingham, North Carolina. Our coverage, of course, begins 1 week from tonight on Wednesday night, July 6th, 9:10 p.m. Eastern. We'll have that for you, of course, right here on the MaxSpeedTV YouTube channel. We'll continue our coverage all the way through the playoffs. Darlington next in the round of 10. Talladega, the Superspeedway in the middle to splice things up. Then Charlotte to end the round and decide our Championship 5, where we will crown a champion in early August over at the Texas Motor Speedway. So a clean race for the most part here from Nashville Superspeedway, a race dominated by long runs, tire saving, and a majority of the field trying to at least survive on this concrete oval. But it's Jaden Porter, the 28, who arises out of the field and becomes a first-time winner in the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series in Season 4, in our first playoff race of the campaign. So for Tyler Murray and everyone from the admin team and our race council for making these races happen each and every week behind the ship, and from all of us at MaxSpeedTV, for Francisco Bacalhau, for myself in the booth tonight, Kenneth Bueno, so long from Nashville Superspeedway, and congratulations to Jaden Porter on his very first win.